Thank you.
Thank you.
There is one host and 8 participants in this conference.
Good. 8 of you out there and 3 of us here. And I think this is going to be a fun workshop. Because I got a great email this week that dove right into the very center of the understanding based on something I had said to this person casually. And casually is not the right way to talk about truth. So I'm going to read the email with her permission and some comments on it. And I think what I'd like to do is read all the way through it and then open it up for discussion and questions and everything. And it is my perhaps naive belief that I understand the answer to this completely and in a very strange sense. I don't mean completely in the full depth, but I mean that I do understand the answer to it, and we could all come to understanding this today if we have the sufficient background. And so what I'm saying is, feel free to hold my feet to the fire and make me explain it till you hear it. And those of you, a few of you are new to the class, and you may not have the background yet if you haven't re-listened to everything, but let's see what happens. So here we go. If there is only, from the letter, if there is only one, how can something be not it? Hell of a question. If it is a sense of it, what exactly is sensing? How could there be anything other than itself, the one consciousness sensing? It strikes me that consciousness peers is in quotes. I know, and in parentheses, I know that is, it doesn't do, but I don't know how else to say this. So it strikes me that consciousness peers through each individual sense of itself in mind, for whatever reason or no reason, and sees whatever level of chub of itself that exists in that individual sensing experience. So, how can something be not God? How can something be not one is the question. And, well, I'm going to go ahead and do my response. This is a very funny topic because it is absolutely simple to explain, except that the explanation is incomprehensible. Inconceivable. All right. How could there... The question is, boy, it's so difficult. I'm confounded because I had a really great explanation written down right here in front of me yesterday and this morning. The problem is that all spiritual teaching is really metaphor. It's really a story about truth. Go back to the pointing at the moon story at the front of that, where the Zen master has his finger pointing at the moon up in the sky, and all the disciples are flocking about his hand, trying to figure out what the position of the hand means and why one finger and why that finger, and nobody's looking up, and they're not getting what he's trying to say because he just keeps gesturing at the moon, and they see the hand movement and everything, and if one of them inadvertently glances up and sees the moon, he will immediately, instantaneously know the truth of what the hand pointing means, and he will know he knows it, and it will be complete, and he'll be finished, okay? Now, all teaching of truth is the same thing. It's pointing at the moon. The truth cannot be explained, which is why I'm sitting here tongue-tied. Truth cannot be explained, but it can certainly be indicated. But we have to make truth can be understood, but we have to make a leap out of our humanhood rational mind to a transcendental state of consciousness, to a higher consciousness, to a godlike consciousness, in order to understand what truth is. And that understanding, by understanding I don't mean have a rational explanation. What I mean is know, understand, feel, experience the truth. And when you experience the truth, like the one disciple who looked up at the moon and experienced the moon, he knew it was truth, and there was no question about it, although he still couldn't tell his other disciples what to do except by pointing. So, the question, the teaching is always dualistic. It's always, we say, and the particular topic that triggered this whole thing is that there is no material body, there is only a material sense of body. And the comment I made was, was something about remembering that your material sense of body is being sensed through your material sense of body. And what you think of as your material sense of body is what your material sense of material physical eyes and ears and hands and stuff like that experience. So your material sense of yourself is being seen through your material sense of yourself. And you can see the huge confusion there, because now suddenly I've got a material sense of myself sensing something, seeing something, observing something. And obviously that's dualistic. Obviously that's it's worse than dualistic. It's just not possible. How can a material sense of something sense? So, I was just very sloppy in my terming. And she says, if there's only one, how can something be not it? If it is the sense of it, what exactly is sensing? Hell of a fair question. How could there be anything other than itself, the one consciousness, sensing? And there isn't. It strikes me that consciousness peers through each individual sense of itself in mind, for whatever reason or no reason, and sees whatever level of chub of itself that exists in that individuated sensing experience. And the problem is that there is no consciousness peering through the individualizations of consciousness. There is only consciousness, and consciousness, the word consciousness means a state of being consciousness. So there's only the state of being consciousness, beingness. And there is only consciousness, there is only witnessing, and there is no witness doing the witnessing. And this is why I said it's very simple to explain. There is only witnessing. All there is witnessing. But when I said it's almost impossible to understand, I'm saying that there is no one witnessing. There is no one witnessing everything. There is just the witnessing itself. And our entire rational mind operates in terms of subjects verbing, in terms of doing and doers. We can't conceive of a doing without a doer, and yet there is only witnessing. When I'm trying to explain, consciousness is experiencing. Consciousness is experiencing itself. The witnessing is experiencing itself. This does not mean that there is a consciousness which is experiencing. This means that consciousness, witnessing, includes the experiencing mind. And see, even that's not right. It does not include the experiencing mind. It is the experiencing mind. Individualizations of witnessing can be thought of, maybe, as individual witnessings, individual experiencings. Individual witnessing, experiencing at any particular point in time in mind are at various states and stages of consciousness. So what we have, let me start paraphrasing myself, what we have is what we call God, which is also what we call consciousness, which is also what we call spirit, which is also what we call witnessing, and it is the actual witnessing that is God. God is not the witnesser, God is the witnessing, and God, part of God, and beyond this there's no way that I can get a handle on it, but part of God, but consciousness itself is always expressed. The reason you know you're conscious is because you're having an experience of yourself, and consciousness is always experienced, is always expressed, because if it were not, it would be unconsciousness or not consciousness. So consciousness is expressed, and it's expressed as the individualizations of itself, except that this already sounds dualistic again, because consciousness is not expressed as the individualization. Consciousness is the individualizations of itself. And the individualizations of itself are experiencing itself, themselves, each other, at the particular state and stage of consciousness that they're at. So we have this totality of expression of God in mind, because we can only talk about in mind. That's all I'm equipped to talk about. And it's in mind that time and space exist. So we have this thing we call consciousness, this witnessing happening in mind at all different levels of consciousness, from totally ignorant to totally enlightened. And it is the actual experiencing. I mean, each of these individualizations is the experiencing, but all of the experiencing is the witnessing. The witnessing is not only each individual witnessing, but it's the entire witnessing that is the total. Well, there's no one consciousness that's witnessing at all, but the totality of the witnessing is the totality of the expression of God, of consciousness. There is well, I'm going to move on, and I certainly have to invite you all in to question me. I can see. The letter goes on. The individualization is a phenomenon or experience, appearance to what? All right. And occurring or imagined in mind. But always it is the one censor. What else could it be? The individual is a phenomenon, experience, appearance to what? Occurring in mind. It is an experience to itself. It is not even an experience to itself. It is the experiencing itself. The individualization is not a consciousness separate from something else. It is the experiencing. So the individualization is an experiencing occurring in mind. It is, and she goes on to say, but always it is the one censor, but no, it is part of the one censor. It is part of the total experience of God. It's the total. See how habit-forming I am of talking about God. It is part of the total experiencing itself. So, what else could it be? I've had so much confusion about monetizing personal sense when it is spoken of as if it were not God, or that it senses. How could a formless, smallest image have any consciousness of its own to do such a thing? It cannot. Absolutely. This person is so at the heart of the whole thing. It cannot. Personal sense is a level, a state or stage of consciousness. It is a level of consciousness of an individualization, and it's called personal sense because that level of consciousness believes that it is separate from God and has an independence of itself, and is not not entirely a God being. It does not realize that its reality is God. It thinks it is separate and independent from God. That's what personal sense is, but it is part of God experiencing itself. I'm going to use the word God experiencing itself to mean some total conglomeration of all the individual experiences happening. And personal sense is some of the experiencing is of consciousnesses, individual consciousnesses that are at the level of personal sense, and some of the individual experiencings that are going on are at an illumined level, and some are at such a low level that neither concept applies. But the fact is there are only individual experiencings, and some of them are personal, and some of them are illumined, not aluminum. Some of them are illumined. Okay? She talks a little bit about some experiences she's had, and she goes on, and still there is what feels like dualism in teachings that describe what I too have expressed, there being a sense of witness and yet witnessing. There being a sense of witness and yet witnessing. Not a witness can be logically the only state of I am. And that's exactly right. Witnessing, not a witness, is the only state there is of I am. Is the whole thing. The witnessing is what's happening. And this person is exactly right. The witnessing is the true sense of what's happening, and it's not. It's the totality of the witnessing of an experience. In other words, for witnessing is experience. It is the totality of consciousness experiencing itself. So I commented on Joel. All teaching is a metaphor at the level of the class. Almost by definition, a class is at a state of consciousness that requires a dualistic teaching. The teaching is trying to help the class realize, make real, more of its own nature, and expand the realm of possibilities which it considers. So the purpose of teaching is expanding our horizons, allowing us to include more possibilities into the things that we ponder. And she adds, please add, if God is too pure to see inequity, what the hell sees it then? Love this person. An unillumined individual state of consciousness witnesses inequity. An illumined individual state of consciousness is too pure to behold inequity. And by that I mean that it may be looking at something that would be described by an unillumined person as inequity. But the illumined consciousness would see it as a state and stage of consciousness of a God being, of an expression of God, and would see the inequity as an expression of Chub, and would not see it as an inequity. Or it might actually, a sufficiently illumined state of consciousness is too pure to behold inequity. It would dissolve it or heal it or reveal the truth. Jesus was a case of a state of consciousness that was too pure to behold inequity in many cases, and the blind could see, and all the Chub lies went away. So there is a lot of beholding of iniquity, and it is by states of consciousness, by individualizations of God experiencing themselves at a state of consciousness that is not high enough to see nothing but truth. She goes on, I realize it is a dim sense of God, but there can only be one consciousness witnessing and only one to witness, dim as it may appear. One true censor, if oneness is true. It makes no sense otherwise. I'm not under the impression that thought or judgment accompanies the witnessing, only that the way we speak of it again and again points to God and not God doing something. Impossible given the premise. At least 6 years of pondering leaves me here. And my comment there is you have reached the state of consciousness where you can grok the truth. In the Heinlein sense of grok, where you can understand the truth. You're clearly at the point where you require this understanding of truth because every other possibility has been eliminated from you. So all there is witnessing, and we're just, it's not difficult to deal with witnessing without a witness. It's just that we are so conditioned that every doing has a doer that we automatically assume that there is a doer. We're just so conditioned to that. And in fact, there is no doer for anything. Everything is just a doing, just a being, just God expressing itself infinitely many ways and shapes and forms and at infinitely many levels of consciousness. So it's not any more difficult to conceive of witnessing with a witness than it is without a witness than it is to conceive of witnessing with a witness, because we can't conceive of witnessing, we can experience witnessing, and the thought I am witnessing is a thought that's added to the experience of witnessing, which is what we're experiencing right now. Right now I am witnessing whatever I'm witnessing. I'm witnessing the people in this room and the paintings on the wall, and you hear me saying I am experiencing this and that and the other thing, but that's the human training. And right now what's happening here is the witnessing of what Lee happens to be looking at. And it's the I am witnessing. The I am is the added thought. And if my mind were silent, there would be no I am witnessing. There would just be witnessing, and there would be no problem with the witnessing. It's only when I start thinking that a problem comes with witnessing. Well, who's witnessing? That's just an old conditioned reflex that we have. So you don't need to fight anything to get rid of the witnessing. The thing to do is just start thinking in terms of just witnessing, and observe yourself witnessing without with your mind quiet, so that you're not thinking that I'm observing myself witnessing. Just quietly witness, and you can see that you can quietly witness without a thought in your head, and there's nothing in your quietly witnessing that says there is anyone witnessing. There is just the awareness going on right now, and the I am aware is totally inferred by my rational mind. Then there was a follow-on, and I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to open this puppy up, and she just thought in more detail about some of this, and it may not be constructive, but let's do it anyway because it causes us to go back over the thing one more time. To hold in awareness or be held in awareness is different from seeing. The word I used in the last texted question about what is witnessing iniquity, what is seeing iniquity. And my comment back is there is only beholding. Sometimes the stage or state of consciousness believes the beholding to be through a physical sense and by a physical sense. After I sent that, I realized that they are different, and that there is a tremendous temptation to mistake spiritually realizing for what the mind can wrap itself around, the sense of something, in this case seeing. Yet even if I use the term spiritual sight, still there is an awareness of a witnessing, and by extension of the premise, one witnessing agency, omnipresent witnessing, whole, at every point in awareness at the same time. Now, that extension is the problem. There is only the witnessing, and all the witnessing experiencing of the infinity of witnessing and experience, mumble. The extension is the problem. There is not one witnessing agency, there is just witnessing, omnipresent witnessing. There is only witnessing. All the witnessing, experiencing of the infinity of witnessing and experiencing through the individualization. I see what that's saying. There is only the one witnessing, which includes all the witnessing and experiencing of the infinity of witnessing and experiencing through the individualization. So by witnessing we mean all the witnessing of all the individualizations, or we mean God experiencing itself. Although that's a dualistic way to phrase it again, but we mean the totality of experiencing. But I'm left with the same question. If there is only one, there cannot be any form of itself it cannot be aware of. If it is omniscient and nothing, it is not. If it is omnipresent. That is sensed at different states of consciousness by individualizations of the whole is inarguable. That it is sensed by different states of consciousness by individualizations of the whole is inarguable. But how can any aspect of the awareness of the whole of all possibly could not be beheld by the one awareness is unclear to me. How any aspect of the awareness of the whole of all could not be beheld by the one awareness is unclear to me. This is back. The assumption here once again is that there is one beholder. There is not one awareness containing all the individualizations of itself. There is only the conglomerate, the one that's including all the individualizations. There's not somebody or something or a God aware of what all the individualizations of itself are experiencing. There is only the totality of the experiencing of all the points of awareness of itself. There's only one awareness expressed as infinitely many individualizations, aspects of itself, individual points of awareness, through which there is experiencing in infinitely many ways, at infinitely many states and stages of consciousness. All there is infinitely many individualizations, at infinitely many states and stages of consciousness, experiencing. That's what we call consciousness, that's what we call spirit, that's what we call God. There is experiencing of every form of itself, sometimes illumined, experiencing through an illumined state or stage, sometimes unillumined, experiencing through an unillumined state or stage, but always experiencing, and part of the experience of the one experiencing. All of my confusion comes back to the same point. What is witnessing? Is there a what? A suchness? How could it not be aware and in full imaginary omnipotence of itself in every form and full experience it's done? How could it want to be otherwise? No wanting. It is the one consciousness which includes being expressed in mind. It is not something expressing it itself. It is the expression which includes all the individualizations. It is it's the totality of the experiencing of itself. And I see of itself, it's almost impossible to talk. It's the totality of experiencing at different stages and states of consciousness. And the experiences of different individualizations at different states and stages of consciousness. And the witnessing is the totality of all of these. And the answer to all these problems comes back to thinking that there is a witness witnessing. And the minute you get there, then you have an impossible can of worms. The answer is that all there is witnessing. Give me 1 minute. I think there's probably no advantage in my trying to say it again differently, because I think we've pretty much covered it. So now the floor is wide open, and anybody that has a question or wants a clarity, or find ways to make me explain myself more clearly if I have not been clear, please jump in. Wow. Okay. That's fine. But is anybody out there? Did I lose the phone line?
Hey, this is Kate.
Oh, there is somebody out there. Good. All right. That's fine.
Wow, that was really something. This study is blowing my socks off continuously.
Good.
So, I know, huh?
The socks are not real.
I know. You don't need socks. There is no spoon. So, what I'm curious about, I mean, this is the only question I can formulate at this point. With the story of the master pointing at the moon and all of the disciples, trying to mimic him, at no point does anybody say, I'm pointing at the moon, so look at the moon.
So
why doesn't anybody say, look at the moon?
I don't know, Kay. I wasn't there. It's a story to indicate pointing at the moon. Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps the poor Zen master was a mute. I don't know. Immaterial. The point is made by the story.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm trying to, with the exact nature of my question is, we're doing this very nebulous, or it seems, we're trying to speak of unity in terms of duality, and so, I don't know, do we need to involve more senses in it? Like if in the story, if somebody had pointed at the moon and said, look up at the moon, would that have helped the disciples, or, would it not have? So in our case, do we need to, have like a colored model of this, of the various states and levels of consciousness in order to be witnessing, or would that complicate it? Or do I just need to go back into the silence?
Yeah. You don't need to figure it out. The hope is that the consciousness of the teaching will lift you to the point where you get it. Do you people know the word grok from Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land? The word is spelled Grok, and it's actually in the dictionary now, and it means to have a full understanding, which means, an illumined understanding of the topic. Hopefully the teaching and the consciousness of the teaching and pondering it and such like will lift you to a point where some illumination happens and you get what it's talking about. And there's complete and absolute peace in knowing that all there is witnessing. We're going to maybe another class. I don't want to add anything to this one, but there's a great rest in knowing that it is all absolutely impersonal, and it's all nothing but the witnessing of itself. Seeing that again, you can't talk and not be dualistic, because language is so subject-verb. If we get that God is finished, let's go to the next teaching. This is really back to the stuff that we talked about last week that we lost. If we really get that God is complete and God is expressed as each of us, and we are complete, and the completeness is, although that's not the point at which we are experiencing ourselves, and that the completeness is fulfilled, and and by fulfilled I mean God fulfilled. Then we really get that all is well and everything is unfolding exactly as it should, and all that's going on is that we are coming to realize more and more, coming to become more illumined about the fact that all there is God, and that God is harmonious and eternal and blissful and all those wonderful things. So that there's a peace in this, but right now we're just talking about the pieces of the puzzle that are keeping us from experiencing the peace, and I'm not going to go into I'll do it next week. This other thing that I was starting to get into a little bit, because this is plenty to work with. But what we're doing is tearing down the barriers that are blocking us from experiencing the total absolute peace, bliss, and joy that is our very nature right now, if it were not obscured from us. I think it was this morning's audio or yesterday's audio, very recently, that Joel said that the primary thing that is preventing us from having an experience that's preventing us from experiencing the grace of God, the beingness of God, the bliss and joy and everything of God, is the belief that there is a God that can deliver to us joy and immortality and bliss and stuff like that. The primary obstacle to experiencing God is the belief that there is God. And what all of this teaching is about is trying to break down these obstacles. And one of these obstacles is that that there is a witness. And this one is considerably more obscure than some of the ones that Joel is trying to bring his people through in his classes. This one more esoteric, I guess I could say, but One person who sent me an email has been chewing unhappily on this for 6 years, and hopefully we're going to break that down today, or I have broken that down today. I did just get a text saying, I felt it break. No witness. I felt it break. Good. So maybe some of it is coming through to you. All there is God, and God is not a thing. God is a beingness. God is a witnessing part of God. God is a beingness, and part of the beingness is the experiencing of the experiencing I was about to say of God, and I will because we have to use words. Part of the beingness of God is the experiencing of itself in all the individualizations at all the different levels and states and stages of consciousness. And that's the fundamental bottom line truth. And
so the state and level of consciousness that I appear to be at now, which is insisting on having everything figured out, is just a smoke screen that if I back away from it and just ignore it and let it dissipate, then the truth will be revealed.
Yes, that's exactly right. Figuring it out is one of the things that's preventing you from figuring it out.
It's like heroin for me. It's just like...
Figuring it out is absolutely impossible because the way you figure is in terms of language, and you can't have a verb in a sentence without a subject, so you can't possibly figure it out. And it's a transcendental experience, and the word transcendental means rising above, and what we're rising above is the intellect, the rational mind. So the experience of God, the experience of grace, the experience of any of that is a transcendental experience, which means that we must rise above the mind and intellect. So anything that you do that requires staying in the mind and intellect is blocking the transcendental experience of eternal bliss, let me say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah. Good. Transcendental is the right word, and it's a tough word because it means above the mind and the intellect which includes materiality. Mind. When I say mind and intellect, I also include the material sense of us, which is part of the mind and intellect. It must be transcended, and that just means risen above, and risen above by no tools that are obviously available to us. Some people get lifted that way by, eliminating experiences. Joel had one, Jesus had one, Robert had one, Rashneesh had one. But most of us transcend it the hard way, climbing up the ladder of pondering these imponderables like we're talking about today. So the hard work of practicing, Joel is so much on about, the way you become a practitioner is practicing the principles, and the way you become illuminated is practicing thinking about these things that are blocking illumination, and it's like Zen koans. The Zen masters used to give their disciples questions that they had to answer, and the questions were questions that had no rational answer, and yet they insisted that they be answered. And the disciple would often work for years on this problem, getting more and more and more frustrated until finally there was a snap, and he would see the point of the koan, and the koan would be solved, and that was a transcendence. It was not because he figured it out, it was because he grokked, he saw the moon, rather than, the answer to the koan is stop looking at the hand, look at the moon. But there was no way to indicate, look at the moon. So yeah, we're just trying to break down the intellect, break down the mind, break down the false sense of I, break down all these deeply conditioned beliefs over thousands of lifetimes, and get free. Let's stop right there. I need to get some more tea. Let's stop right there and come back. We don't need to be gone long. Come back at 5 minutes after the hour, and we'll let this thing go anywhere it wants to go at that point.
Thanks, Lee.
You bet.